The massive ships came out of nowhere. One moment the space around Earth was empty, and the next moment hundreds of alien vessels appeared like ghosts becoming real. The biggest ship was as large as a small moon, its metal surface covered in strange patterns that seemed to move when nobody was looking directly at them. Commander Tyke stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the blue planet through the huge window. His hands were shaking, but he tried to hide it from his crew. After 500,000 years, they had finally returned to Earth. The place where his people, the Valari, had planted the seeds of intelligent life so long ago. "Sir, we are getting some very strange readings," said Mira, his chief strategist. She was looking at her screens with a worried expression. Her usually calm voice had a slight tremor in it. "The entire solar system has been changed. Every planet shows signs of modification." Tyke walked over to look at her data. What he saw made his heart beat faster. Mars was green and blue now, with clouds and what looked like cities covering its surface. Jupiter had massive structures floating around it like metal moons. Saturn's rings had been turned into some kind of construction project that stretched around the entire planet. "This is impossible," whispered Jin, the team's best scientist who studied alien life. He was pale as he looked at his own readings. "According to our records, we left primitive ape-like creatures here. They barely knew how to use stone tools. How could they do all this?" The bridge fell silent except for the quiet humming of the ship's engines. Tyke felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. The Valari were the most advanced race in the galaxy. They had built an empire that spanned thousands of star systems. They had guided the evolution of dozens of species. Nothing should be able to surprise them like this. "Try to contact them," Tyke ordered. "Send the standard first contact message in all known languages." Wu, their communications expert, worked at his console for several minutes. His face grew more confused with each passing moment. "Sir, I am sending the signals, but there is no response. It is like they are ignoring us completely." "Maybe they do not have the technology to hear us," suggested Mira. Jin shook his head. "No, that cannot be right. Look at these energy readings. They are using power sources that we do not even understand. Some of these signatures are stronger than our most advanced reactors." Tyke stared at the planet Earth. It looked peaceful from this distance, but something felt wrong. The blue and green world seemed too perfect, too organized. Even the clouds looked like they were arranged in patterns. "Take us closer," he ordered, "but keep all weapons ready and shields at maximum power." As their fleet moved deeper into the solar system, they saw more impossible things. Asteroid belts had been turned into mining operations that stretched for millions of miles. Space stations the size of cities floated between planets. Some of the structures looked organic, like they had been grown instead of built. "Commander," said Hana, the ship's archaeologist, "I am detecting artificial gravity fields around every major planet. And these energy patterns, they are not just using their planets for resources. They have turned entire worlds into machines." The fear in Tyke's stomach grew stronger. His people had left Earth because of a great war that had lasted for thousands of years. They had been forced to abandon many of their experiments and focus on survival. When the war finally ended, they had planned to return and collect the species they had created. Those species would become part of the great Valari Empire, serving as workers, soldiers, and subjects. But this was not what they had expected to find. "Sir," Wu said suddenly, "I am picking up a transmission. It is very faint, coming from Earth itself." "Put it on the main screen," Tyke ordered. The message that appeared was simple, just a few words in perfect Valari language. "Welcome home. Please proceed to coordinates 37.5665 126 9780. Come alone." The bridge crew looked at each other in shock. How did these humans know their language? How did they know the Valari were coming? "Sir," Jin said quietly, "those coordinates are on the surface of Earth, in what our old records call the Korean Peninsula." Tyke thought for a long moment. Every instinct told him this was dangerous, but they had come too far to turn back now. His people needed to know what had happened here. "Prepare a small landing craft," he ordered. "Mira, Jin, Hana, and Wu will come with me. The rest of the fleet will stay here and be ready to leave quickly if something goes wrong." As they prepared to leave the main ship, Tyke looked one more time at the planet below. It looked so peaceful and beautiful, but he could not shake the feeling that they were flying into a trap. The landing craft was their most advanced ship, equipped with the best shields and weapons the Valari had. But as they entered Earth's atmosphere, Tyke felt like a child playing with toys. The sky around them seemed alive. What looked like clouds from space revealed themselves to be something else entirely. Massive shapes moved through the air, too large and too organized to be natural. Some of them seemed to notice the Valeri ship and followed it with movements that looked almost curious. "What are those things?" Mira asked, staring out the window. "I do not know," Jin replied, but his voice was full of fear. "They are not showing up on our scanners as living creatures, but they are definitely not machines either." The surface of Earth was even more shocking. Where their records showed primitive forests and simple human settlements, there were now cities that stretched beyond the horizon. But these were not cities like the Valeri built. These structures seemed to grow out of the ground itself, made of materials that shifted and changed color in the sunlight. Trees grew alongside buildings in perfect harmony. Rivers flowed through the streets, but the water glowed with a soft blue light. People walked through the streets, but from this distance it was hard to tell if they were still fully human. The coordinates led them to what looked like an ancient temple complex. But as they landed, Tyke realized it was much older than any human civilization should be. The stone blocks were massive and covered with symbols that hurt to look at directly. "These symbols," Hana whispered as they stepped out of their ship, "they are not in any human language I know. But somehow I think I understand what they mean." "What do they say?" Tyke asked. Hana's face went pale. "They say warning. Do not wake what sleeps below. Do not repeat the mistakes of the past." As if responding to her words, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate. A low humming sound filled the air. The symbols on the stones began to glow with the same blue light they had seen in the rivers. "Sir," Wu said, checking his equipment, "I am detecting strong signals coming from underground. Something down there is trying to communicate with us." Tyke looked at his team. They had come this far. They could not turn back now. "Lead the way," he said, as they walked toward the entrance of the underground complex. None of them noticed that the clouds above had gathered into perfect geometric patterns, or that the trees around them had turned to watch their progress with branches that moved like arms. The entrance to the underground complex was unlike anything the Valeri had ever seen. The opening in the ground seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat, and the walls inside were made of a material that looked like living metal. As they walked deeper, their footsteps echoed in ways that did not make sense. Sometimes the echo came before they took the step. Hana led the way, her archaeological training helping her navigate the strange passages. But even she was confused by what she saw. "These corridors do not follow normal physics," she said, running her hand along the smooth wall. "This passage should have taken us back to where we started, but somehow we are going deeper." Jin was constantly checking his scanner, but the readings made no sense. "The walls are alive," he reported to Tyke. "Not just organic, they are thinking. I can detect neural activity in the metal itself." The group had been walking for what felt like hours when they came to a large chamber. The room was circular and filled with a soft blue glow that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. In the center of the room sat a single figure. She looked human, but perfectly so. Her features were Korean, with long black hair that seemed to move in a breeze that none of them could feel. She appeared to be in her 20s, wearing simple white clothes that looked like they were made of light itself. Her eyes were closed and she sat so still that she might have been a statue. "Is she alive?" Mira whispered. Jin slowly approached with his scanner. He had only taken a few steps when the woman's eyes snapped open. They were completely black, like looking into deep space, but somehow still beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "You are early," she said in perfect Valeri. Her voice was soft but seemed to come from all around them. "We were not expecting you for another century." The 5 Valeri froze. None of them had spoken, but she knew their language perfectly. She spoke it better than some Valeri did. "Who are you?" Tyke managed to ask. The woman smiled, and when she did, the room seemed to brighten. "My name is Yuna. I am what my people call a keeper. I am one of many who watch over this world and protect it from harm." She stood up gracefully, and as she did, the walls around them began to change. What had looked like solid metal became transparent, revealing other chambers beyond. In each chamber they could see more figures. Some looked human. Others looked like something between human and machine. And still others were so changed that it was hard to tell what they had once been. "Come," Yuna said, walking toward one of the now transparent walls. "Let me show you what your people created." She passed through the wall like it was made of water. After a moment of hesitation, the Valeri followed. To their surprise, they could walk through it too. The next chamber was enormous, stretching so far that they could not see the end. Thousands of humans floated in transparent pods filled with glowing liquid, but these were not normal humans. Some had metal growing from their skin like silver trees. Others seemed to be partly made of light. A few appeared to be connected to machines by organic cables that pulsed with energy. What happened to them? Hana asked, her voice full of horror. They evolved, Yuna replied simply. When your people left, you thought you were abandoning primitive apes. But you had planted seeds of something much greater than you realized. She led them to another chamber where figures sat in meditation poses, their bodies perfectly still. Around each one, the air itself seemed to bend and twist. Jin's scanner was going crazy, detecting energy levels that should have been impossible for any living being to contain. Your ancestors made one critical mistake, Yuna continued as they walked. They thought intelligence was the highest form of evolution. They never considered what comes after intelligence. And what comes after? Tyke asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Understanding, Yuna said. First we learned to use tools. Then we learned to build machines. Then we learned to become the machines. But the final step was learning that the division between organic and artificial was just an illusion. In the next chamber, they saw humans who looked normal from a distance. But as they got closer, the Volari realized that these people existed in multiple dimensions at once. They could see through them to other versions of the same person doing different things in different realities. We stopped aging about 300,000 years ago, Yuna explained. We stopped dying about 200,000 years ago. We stopped being limited to single bodies about 100,000 years ago. Wu was frantically trying to record everything with his equipment, but his devices kept failing. How is this possible? He asked. Our science says this cannot be done. Yuna turned to look at him with those strange black eyes. Your science is based on the idea that there are rules that cannot be broken. We learned that there are no rules, only patterns, and patterns can be changed. She led them to a final chamber that was even larger than the others. Here, thousands of humans worked on projects that the Volari could not begin to understand. Some were growing what looked like baby stars in their hands. Others were weaving space itself into new shapes. A few seemed to be having conversations with beings that existed only as pure energy. We have been very busy while you were gone, Yuna said. We have learned so much. About the universe, about life, about the connections between all things. Why are you showing us this? Mira asked. She was trying to stay calm, but her voice was shaking. Because you need to understand what you are dealing with, Yuna replied. Your people created us to be your servants, to work for you, to fight for you, to worship you. But children grow up, and sometimes they become stronger than their parents. The chamber around them began to change again. The walls became transparent, revealing the surface of the earth far above. But now they could see it as it really was. The cities were not built on the ground, they were the ground. The entire planet had become a single living organism. The rivers of glowing water were like blood vessels. The strange clouds were like brain cells. The humans walking through the streets were like white blood cells, each one part of a vast consciousness that spanned the entire world. Earth is alive, Yuna said simply. We did not just build our civilization on it. We became it. Every tree, every river, every mountain is part of us now, and we are part of them. Jin dropped his scanner. It clattered on the floor, the sound echoing strangely in the vast chamber. This is impossible, he whispered. A consciousness that large would collapse under its own complexity. Only if you think in terms of individual minds, Yuna replied. But we learned to think in terms of collective consciousness while still maintaining our individual selves. Each human is both a single person and part of something infinitely larger. She walked closer to the terrified Volari. We have been watching your people for a very long time. We know about your empire, your wars, your methods of dealing with other species. We have been waiting for you to return. Waiting for what? Tyke asked, though he was beginning to understand. Yuna smiled again, and this time it was not entirely friendly. To see if you had learned anything in the time you were gone. To see if you were ready to meet your children as equals instead of property. The walls around them began to pulse with that familiar blue light. But now the light was brighter, and it was coming from everywhere. From the walls, from the floor, from the air itself. You wanted to know what happened to the primitive apes you left behind, Yuna said. Now you know. We grew up. Yuna led them through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they walked. The walls flowed like water, creating new passages while closing others behind them. Tyke felt like they were walking through the inside of a living creature, which he was beginning to realize might actually be true. "How long has Earth been like this?" Hannah asked as they walked. She was trying to maintain her scientific curiosity despite the fear that was obvious in her voice. "The transformation began about 400,000 years ago," Una replied. "At first it was just small changes. Humans learning to communicate with plants and animals. Then we learned to share memories and thoughts with each other. By 300,000 years ago, we had begun to merge with our technology. They entered a chamber where the walls showed images like a movie screen. But these were not recordings. They were living memories playing out in real time. The Valari watched as primitive humans discovered fire, invented writing, built the first cities. But then the images showed something different. Humans who could speak to animals. Humans who could make plants grow with their thoughts. Humans who began to glow with inner light. Your genetic modifications were more successful than you intended," Una explained. "You tried to create intelligent servants. Instead, you created something that could evolve beyond any limits." The images showed the first humans who learned to link their minds together. Small groups at first, sharing thoughts and feelings, then larger communities, eventually entire cities connected by invisible bonds of consciousness. "We did not lose our individuality," Una said, noticing their confused expressions. "I am still Una. I have my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own dreams. But I am also part of something larger. Think of it like being a single cell in a body, but a cell that can think and choose for itself." Jin was staring at the images with growing horror. "But the energy requirements alone? A planetary consciousness would need power sources beyond anything we can imagine." Una smiled. "You are still thinking in terms of your old science. We do not use power sources. We are power sources. Every human generates more energy than they consume. Every tree, every river, every grain of soil contributes to the whole." The images changed to show humans who had learned to photosynthesize like plants, drawing energy directly from sunlight. Others who could absorb energy from the Earth itself, or from the magnetic field of the planet, or from the cosmic radiation that filled space. "We became self-sustaining," Una continued. "And then we became more than self-sustaining. We became generators of energy, not just consumers." Mira pointed at one of the images showing humans who seemed to be made partially of light. "What happened to their bodies?" "Bodies are just one way of existing," Una replied. "Some of us chose to remain physical. Others chose to become energy beings. Still others chose to be both, shifting between forms as needed." They walked through another section where they could see humans who appeared completely normal, talking and laughing together. But as they watched, some of these humans simply dissolved into light and reformed elsewhere. Others reached into what looked like empty air and pulled out tools or food from some invisible storage space. "We learned that reality is much more flexible than your science teaches," Una explained. "Matter and energy are just different states of the same thing. Space and time are just convenient ways of organizing experience. Once we understood this, we could reshape reality itself." Tyke felt his worldview crumbling. The Valari prided themselves on being the most advanced species in the galaxy. They had mastered faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, genetic engineering, and artificial intelligence. But everything he was seeing suggested that humans had gone far beyond any of those achievements. "Why did you not contact us?" he asked. "Why did you not tell the galaxy what you had become?" Una stopped walking and turned to face them. For the first time, her expression became serious. "Because we learned about the galaxy by watching it. We sent observers to your worlds, to the worlds of other species. We saw how you treated any race that you considered inferior. We saw what happened to species that tried to resist your expansion." The walls around them displayed new images. Valari fleets destroying planets that refused to surrender. Species forced into slavery. Entire civilizations wiped out because they were considered too primitive to be worth preserving. "We realized that revealing ourselves would be seen as a threat," Una continued. "The galaxy would unite against us just as your people united against the threats you faced in your Great War. So we chose to remain hidden." "But you were not completely hidden," Wu said. "You said you sent observers." "Yes," Una nodded. "We have been watching all of you for a very long time. We have people on most civilized worlds. Some are disguised as members of local species. Others exist as pure consciousness invisible to your detection methods." Hana looked shocked. There are humans living among us? On Valeri worlds? Not just Valeri worlds, Una replied. Everywhere. We needed to understand how the galaxy worked, how different species thought and behaved. We needed to know if there was hope for peaceful coexistence. She led them to another chamber, this one filled with what looked like meditation circles. In each circle, a human sat in the center while holographic images of different alien worlds played around them. Some showed Valeri cities, others showed species the Valeri had never even heard of. Each of these observers maintains contact with our hidden agents throughout the galaxy, Una explained. We know about every fleet movement, every political decision, every scientific breakthrough. We have been preparing for this day for thousands of years. Preparing for what? Tyke asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. For the day when we would have to decide what to do about the rest of the galaxy, Una replied. Whether to reveal ourselves and risk war, or to take action to protect ourselves. The chamber around them began to change again. The walls became transparent, revealing the surface of Earth far above. But now they could see things that had been invisible before. Massive structures rising from the oceans, reaching into space like impossibly tall towers. The northern lights, which they now realized were not natural phenomena, but some kind of planet-wide energy grid. The structures you saw when you arrived, Una said, those were just the parts we allowed you to see. Earth has defenses that span the entire solar system. We have been building them for 300,000 years. Jin's face went pale. Defenses against what? Against anyone who might try to threaten us, Una replied simply. Including you, she gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic displays showing the Valeri fleet in orbit around Earth. But now they could see that the fleet was completely surrounded by invisible structures. Massive shapes that their sensors had not detected moved through space around their ships like predators circling prey. We have been watching your every move since you arrived, Una continued. Your ships are powerful, but they are not powerful enough to threaten us. Still, we had to be certain of your intentions. Mira was staring at the displays in shock. Our sensors did not detect any of those structures.
How is that possible?
Because they exist partially outside normal spacetime, Una explained. We learned to build in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Your sensors can only detect objects that exist entirely in three-dimensional space. The holographic displays zoomed in to show details of the Valeri ships. But they were not just showing the outside of the ships. They were showing the inside as well, revealing every crew member, every weapon, every piece of equipment. We know everything about your technology, Una said. We have been studying it for millennia. There is nothing on your ships that we have not already learned to build better. Tyke felt a chill run down his spine. What do you want from us? Una turned to look at him with those endless black eyes. We want to know if your people have learned anything from their history. If they are ready to accept that they are no longer the dominant force in the galaxy. And if we are not ready? Tyke asked. Una's expression did not change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Then we will have to make sure they learn. Una led them back toward the surface through passages that seemed to move and flow around them. As they walked, the walls showed more images of Earth's transformation. Cities that grew like living organisms, forests that sang with voices that sounded almost human, oceans where whales and dolphins swam alongside creatures that looked like they were made of pure light. Your people always thought of intelligence as something that belonged only to certain species, Una said as they climbed. But we learned that everything can think. Plants, animals, even the rocks in the air itself. We just had to learn how to listen. When they finally reached the surface, the sight that greeted them was even more incredible than what they had seen underground. The sky was alive with movement. What the Valeri had taken for normal clouds were actually massive creatures floating through the atmosphere. Some were as large as cities, drifting slowly through the air with movements that were clearly purposeful and intelligent. Those are the sky shepherds, Una explained, noticing their stares. They help maintain the planet's weather and atmosphere. They have been our partners for over 200,000 years. As if responding to her words, one of the enormous creatures began to descend toward them. As it came closer, they could see that it was not just a single being, but a complex ecosystem unto itself. Smaller creatures swam through its translucent body like fish in water. Gardens grew on its surface, tended by beings that looked like a cross between humans and birds. The creature settled on the ground near them with surprising gentleness for something so large. A section of its body opened like a door, and several figures emerged. They looked human at first glance, but their skin had a faint blue tint and their eyes were larger than normal. When they moved, they seemed to float slightly above the ground. "These are the Skyriders," Yuna said. "They chose to adapt to life in the atmosphere rather than on the surface." One of the Skyriders approached and spoke to Yuna in a language that sounded like wind chimes and flowing water. Yuna nodded and replied in the same musical language. "What did they say?" Tyke asked. "They wanted to know if you were the visitors we have been expecting," Yuna replied. "I told them yes." She turned to face the Valeri delegation. "They also wanted to know if you had made your choice yet." "What choice?" Mira asked. "The choice that will determine the future of both our species," Yuna said, "and probably the future of the entire galaxy." She gestured toward the sky where more of the massive creatures were gathering. As they watched, the Valeri could see that each creature was surrounded by smaller objects that moved in perfect formation. When Jin focused his scanner on them, he realized they were ships. Living ships that seemed to be part plant, part machine, and part something else entirely. "For the past 50,000 years we have been building a fleet," Yuna said, "not just here on Earth but throughout the galaxy. We have been preparing for the day when we might need to defend ourselves against a hostile universe." The scanner readings that Jin was getting made no sense. Each of the organic ships was generating power levels that exceeded anything in the Valeri fleet. And there were thousands of them, just in the small area they could see. "How many ships do you have?" he asked quietly. "Enough," Yuna replied. "We have ships hidden in the asteroid belts of every inhabited star system. We have observers on every major world. We have been preparing for this day for longer than your entire recorded history." Tyke felt his mouth go dry. "You are threatening us." "No," Yuna said firmly. "We are offering you a choice. Your people can accept that humanity has grown beyond your control and learn to coexist with us peacefully, or they can try to treat us as the primitive species you left behind and face the consequences." She walked over to what looked like an ordinary tree growing near the ancient temple, but when she placed her hand on its trunk, the tree began to change. Its bark became transparent, revealing a complex network of what looked like nerve fibers running through its entire structure. The fibers pulsed with the same blue light they had seen throughout the underground complex. "Every tree on Earth is part of our communication network," Yuna explained. "They can transmit information faster than light across any distance. We can coordinate actions across the entire galaxy in real time." Hana was staring at the tree in amazement. "The trees are alive. Really alive. They are thinking." "Everything is alive," Yuna corrected. "Everything is thinking. We just taught them how to think together." Wu was frantically trying to contact their ship, but his communication device was not working. "My equipment is being blocked," he reported to Tyke. "Not blocked," Yuna said. "Protected. We cannot allow you to contact your fleet until you understand the full situation." She led them to a clear area where they could see the horizon. In the distance, massive structures rose from the Earth like mountains, but they were clearly artificial. As they watched, sections of these structures opened to reveal more of the organic ships. Hundreds of them launched into the sky with movements that were both graceful and terrifying. "Those are just the ships based on Earth," Yuna said. "We have similar facilities on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and in the asteroid belt. Your fleet is impressive by galactic standards, but it represents less than 1% of our defensive capability." Jin was still trying to make sense of his scanner readings. "The energy signatures I am detecting. Some of these ships are generating power equivalent to a small star. We learned to harness the energy of biological processes," Yuna explained. "Life creates energy more efficiently than any machine. A single human can generate enough power to run a starship, and we have billions of humans." She turned to face them directly. "Your people created us to be your servants. Instead, you created something that could replace you as the dominant force in the galaxy. The question now is what we choose to do with that power." "What do you want us to do?" Tyke asked. "Return to your people," Yuna said. "Tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that Earth's children have grown up, and that we are no longer available to be conquered or enslaved. Tell them that we prefer peace, but we are prepared for war." "And if they do not listen?" Mira asked. Yuna gestured toward the sky, where the massive living ships were now arranged in perfect geometric formations. "Then we will visit every Valeri world simultaneously and explain the situation more directly." The implication was clear. Humanity had the power to destroy the entire Valeri civilization if they chose to. They had been preparing for this possibility for thousands of years. "But we do not want to do that," Yuna continued. We learned something from studying the galaxy that your people never understood. True power is not about domination. It is about making sure that no one ever has to be afraid again. She walked over to Jin and gently took his scanner from his hands. With a simple gesture, she repaired all the damage that the strange energies had caused to it. When she handed it back, it was working better than it ever had before. We could have destroyed your fleet the moment you entered our solar system, she said. We could have made you disappear without a trace. Instead, we invited you down to talk. That should tell you something about our intentions. Wu's communication device suddenly came back to life. My equipment is working again, he reported. You are free to return to your ship, Yuna said. But before you go, you need to understand one more thing. This conversation is being broadcast to every Valari ship in your fleet. Your leaders already know everything you have learned here. Tyke felt his heart sink. You have been controlling our communications the entire time. Not controlling, Yuna corrected. Monitoring. We needed to be sure that your entire command structure understood the situation, not just you. She smiled, and for the first time it looked genuinely warm and friendly. The choice your people make in the next few hours will determine whether humanity remains hidden or steps onto the galactic stage. We hope you choose wisely. The journey back to their ship felt like a dream. The Valari delegation sat in silence as their landing craft rose through Earth's atmosphere, past the massive sky shepherds and their living ships. Each of them was trying to process what they had seen and what it meant for their people. When they docked with the flagship Eternal Dawn, they found chaos waiting for them. The bridge was filled with officers shouting orders and running between stations. Admiral Kiros, the second in command of the fleet, rushed to meet them as soon as they stepped off the landing craft. Commander Tyke, he said urgently, we have been monitoring your communications with the surface. Is it true? Are they really as powerful as they claim? Tyke looked around at his panicked crew. These were some of the best military minds in the Valari Empire, but they looked like children who had just learned that monsters were real. Everything we saw was real, he said quietly, maybe more real than we can understand. He called for an immediate meeting of all ship commanders. Within an hour, the main conference room was filled with the leaders of the Valari fleet. Holographic displays showed the data that Jin had collected, but the readings were so impossible that many of the commanders refused to believe them. This must be some kind of trick, insisted Captain Renz of the battleship Stormbringer. No species could develop this kind of technology in such a short time. 500,000 years is not a short time, Hana pointed out. And they did not start from nothing. They started with the genetic modifications our own people gave them. Admiral Kiros studied the holographic displays with a worried expression. Even if we accept that they have advanced technology, surely our fleet can handle whatever defenses they have. We have over 300 ships with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Jin activated his scanner and projected its readings for everyone to see. According to my measurements, a single one of their organic ships generates more power than our entire fleet combined. And I counted over 10,000 of them just in the small area we could observe. The room fell silent. Even the most aggressive commanders could do basic math. What do they want? Asked Captain Vila of the science vessel Deep Explorer. They want us to make a choice, Tyke replied. We can acknowledge that they are no longer a primitive species and learn to coexist with them as equals. Or we can try to treat them as we have always treated species we consider inferior and face the consequences. And those consequences are? Admiral Kiros asked. Mira activated the holographic display to show the recordings they had made on the surface. They have ships hidden throughout the galaxy. They could attack every Valari world simultaneously if they chose to. That is impossible, Captain Renz protested. Our intelligence networks would have detected any large-scale military buildup. Not if they can hide their ships outside normal space-time, Jin said. Their technology is based on principles we do not understand. They can make themselves invisible to our sensors, faster than our fastest ships, and more powerful than our most advanced weapons. The debate continued for hours. Some commanders wanted to fight, convinced that no species could possibly be as advanced as the humans claimed to be. Others wanted to retreat immediately and warn the Valari homeworld. Still others suggested trying to negotiate some kind of treaty that would protect Valari interests while acknowledging human power. During the discussion, Wu received an urgent message from the communication station. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the surface. It is addressed specifically to you, Commander Tyke. The message appeared on the main screen. It was Una, looking exactly as she had when they left her on Earth. But now she was not alone. Behind her stood dozens of other humans, and behind them were structures that had not been there before. Massive towers of living metal stretched into the sky, pulsing with energy that made the air itself shimmer. Commander Tyke, Una said, I hope your discussions are going well. I wanted to let you know that we have been monitoring the communications between your ships. We understand that some of your people are having difficulty accepting the new situation. Several of the Valari commanders muttered angrily about privacy and spying, but Tyke gestured for silence. To help with your decision, Una continued, we would like to show you something. The view behind her changed, zooming out to show the entire Earth. But now they could see structures that had been invisible before. The planet was covered with a network of energy that connected every continent, every ocean, every cloud in the sky. The entire world pulsed with a rhythm like a vast heartbeat. This is Earth as it really is, Una said. A single living organism with billions of individual minds working together. But Earth is not the only world we have transformed. The image changed to show Mars, but not the Mars they had observed when they arrived. This Mars showed a planet completely covered with cities that seemed to grow like forests. Rivers of liquid light flowed between floating towers that reached into space. Mars has been our testing ground for integrating technology with biology, Una explained. Every building, every vehicle, every piece of infrastructure is alive and thinking. The image changed again, showing the moons of Jupiter. Each moon had been transformed into something that looked more like a massive machine than a natural satellite. Energy flowed between them in visible streams of light, creating a network that spanned the entire Jovian system. Jupiter's moons serve as our main manufacturing centers, Una continued. We can build anything we need using resources from the gas giant itself. Finally, the image showed the asteroid belt. But instead of scattered rocks, they saw a vast construction project. Thousands of asteroids had been connected by tubes and cables of living metal, creating structures that were larger than planets. The asteroid belt is our primary shipyard, Una said. Most of our fleet is based there, ready to travel to any part of the galaxy within hours. Captain Renz was staring at the display in shock. How many ships do they have? As if hearing his question, Una smiled. Would you like to see? The view zoomed in on one section of the asteroid belt construction. As they watched, bays opened in the structures and ships began to emerge. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands upon thousands. They kept coming until the space around the asteroids was filled with a fleet so vast that it looked like a swarm of insects. This is just one of our shipyards, Una said. We have similar facilities in over 100 star systems throughout the galaxy. The Valari commanders sat in stunned silence. Even their most optimistic estimates of their own military strength were nothing compared to what they were seeing. But we do not want to use this fleet for war, Una continued. We would prefer to use it for exploration, for helping other species develop peacefully, for protecting worlds that cannot protect themselves. She paused, looking directly at the camera as if she could see through it to the Valari officers watching. The choice is yours, she said. You can return to your people and tell them that Earth is to be left alone, that humanity has graduated from being your creation to being your equal. In return, we will share some of our knowledge with you. We will help you solve the problems that have plagued your empire for generations. And if we refuse? Admiral Kiros asked. Una's expression became sad. Then we will be forced to treat you as a threat. And we deal with threats very efficiently. The transmission ended, leaving the conference room in complete silence. For several minutes, no one spoke. Finally, Tyke stood up. The choice is clear, he said. We can accept that our children have grown beyond our control and learn to live with them as equals. Or we can try to maintain the old order and face destruction. You are talking about surrender, Captain Renz said angrily. No, Tyke replied. I am talking about survival, and perhaps about something better than survival. They offered to share their knowledge with us. Imagine what we could learn from a species that has solved the problems of aging, death, and resource scarcity. The debate continued, but the outcome was inevitable. Faced with overwhelming evidence of humanity's power, the Valari fleet had no choice but to accept the new reality. 3 days later, the Valari fleet departed Earth's solar system carrying a message that would change the galaxy forever. Earth was now classified as a forbidden zone, Off-limits to all Valari ships. Humanity was to be treated as a sovereign species with technology far beyond current galactic standards. But along with the warning came gifts. Coordinates to uninhabited worlds perfect for Valari colonization. Designs for new energy sources that were clean and limitless. Medical knowledge that could extend Valari lifespans by thousands of years. As the fleet entered hyperspace for the journey home, Tyke stood on the bridge looking back at Earth one last time. The planet looked peaceful and beautiful, showing no sign of the incredible power that lay hidden beneath its surface. "Sir," Wu said quietly, "I am receiving one final transmission from the surface." "Put it through," Tyke ordered. Yuna's voice filled the bridge warm and friendly. "Safe travels, Commander Tyke. We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. The universe is vast and full of wonders. There is room for everyone to grow and prosper together." As Earth disappeared from view, Tyke realized that they had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history.